Welcome to our video podcast. We had the idea that if we already produce educational content in the form of articles, it might be also interesting to have some video content on top of that, where we walk you through the article, highlight the features of the different DeFi protocols that we're covering, and maybe also a small demonstration at the end on how to use these protocols. For today, we will be taking a look at Abracadabra.money, which is a lending protocol that allows users to deposit interest-bearing assets in order to create magic internet money, a multi-chain stablecoin. If we want to compare Abracadabra money to an already existing protocol, it would be certainly MakerDAO, because both of them offer over-collateralized loans. Over-collateralized loans means I can take my crypto assets like Bitcoin or Ethereum, deposit them into a vault, into a smart contract, and then borrow a stablecoin against these assets. In MakerDAO, the stablecoin is called DAI with a peg to the US dollar, and in Abracadabra, the name is Magic Internet Money, or short MIM. Even though Abracadabra is at its core very similar to MakerDAO, there are some differences, especially two major ones. The first one being interest-bearing assets for Abracadabra money. That means that instead of depositing just Bitcoin or Ethereum, I can also deposit interest-bearing assets, which is a novelty, as so far it was only liquid assets, so now I can also deposit illiquid assets in the form of LP tokens. And these LP tokens generate a yield, a return, which in return means that if I borrow money from Abracadabra, I can produce a self-repaying loan, which is something that hasn't been out there so far, and there's a lot of talks right now about DeFi 2.0 in general, and Abracadabra is definitely one of these protocols that many people are right now taking a look at. Next to the interest-bearing assets, we also have another component which is very unique and interesting in regard to Abracadabra, because Abracadabra embraces a multi-chain future. So for now, they're operating on Arbitrum, Phantom, Avalanche, and Ethereum, and there's currently plans for deployment on Binance Smart Chain and Solana too. So there's already quite some blockchains that are being supported by Abracadabra, and the protocol has the intention to keep the expansion up and basically to be available on every major blockchain that offers some form of DeFi. If we now walk through the article, we will see that users can employ illiquid interest-bearing tokens like YUSDT and XSUSHI as collateral to create a liquid asset called MIM. This enables leverage yield farming by releasing stranded capital or converting otherwise illiquid assets into liquid assets. As I already just said, this is really something new, because so far you could only deposit liquid assets like Ethereum or Bitcoin. However, now that you can also deposit, for example, YUSDT or XSUSHI, you can basically generate yield with your assets and at the same time use them to borrow the liquid asset MIM, so the stablecoin. With that, you can then do additional purchases, or let's say you want to, for example, have a dinner and you don't want to sell any of your Bitcoin, you can just borrow some MIM and basically pay your dinner with your interest-bearing Bitcoin, for example, with REN. There's one component where you can just use REN and Yearn, and then basically the yield that your Bitcoin generates somewhat pays for your dinner, which is something very nice and interesting. And I think we will see a lot more about that, that we basically will have like these interest-bearing LP tokens as a totally new asset class, which will be heavily utilized in many different DeFi protocols. So let's take a look at what are the main tokens in the Abracadabra protocol. So first we have Spell. Spell is the governance token. With that you can vote. However, for that you have to stake it to basically receive S-spell, which is staked spell. And S-spell can be used for the voting within the protocol. So let's say, for example, I think it was 1 or 2 weeks ago, there was like a vote on whether Abracadabra should be also deployed on the Binance Smart Chain, and the vote was positive. So currently there are all the plannings going on for the release next week. So maybe we will see something like a BNB vault, where then Binance Smart Chain users can deposit their BNB in the Abracadabra Binance Smart Chain protocol, and then also borrow their MIM against their BNB tokens. Next to the governance, it's very interesting for S-spell certainly. There is like a 75% revenue participation. So all the fees that are being generated from the borrowing and the use of MIM, including the interest rate and liquidation fees, all these fees are basically redistributed to the S-spell token holders. I think in total 75%. So, and this process happens on a weekly basis. So there's something like a weekly dividend that's being paid out to the S-spell token holders. Next, we have MIM. MIM is the stablecoin, as I already explained, can be minted with interest-bearing tokens and then used for whatever you want to use it for. Collateral tokens, also already shortly explained, different interest-bearing assets, mostly from Yearn, Curve, or Sushi. And what's very interesting about Abracadabra, we'll come to that right now, is the Kashi lending technology. Because Abracadabra uses the bento box from SushiSwap, which creates single-sided spell vaults. So different from MakerDAO, where we have like a multi-collateralized DAI, here in Abracadabra we have these single-sided markets for each individual asset. And what we did, we listed them all in the token base. So if you click on the link, you will just get redirected to the token base. And here you can find all the different assets that can be deposited in the Abracadabra protocol. So for example, Avalanche. On Avalanche, we have certain curve pools on Ethereum, also Arbitrum, so also the first second layer solutions are supported by Abracadabra. Further, we have, for example, also Phantom, and so on. And as I already said, it's very likely that we will see next week Binance Smart Chain. And I know that Danny twittered today something about that we will likely also see the deployment on Solana very soon. So there's now 2 more blockchains that will be soon supported by Abracadabra. And basically in here you can also find all the information about the different vaults, since we have listed them all here in the token base, which is very useful. Let's go back to the article. So I was just talking about the Kashi lending technology. It's certainly something that makes Abracadabra unique or very much different from MakerDAO at its core. As I said, there are certain similarities, but there's also some major differences. The Kashi lending technology and the single-sided markets certainly is one. Second, the interest-bearing tokens that can be deposited to basically borrow then MIM against these assets. And last, this multi-chain approach where Abracadabra is not just focusing on one blockchain, but they are really embracing this multi-chain future, and they want to become the multi-chain stablecoin, the decentralized multi-chain stablecoin. If we now check here, when compared to traditional lending markets, this allows customers to modify the collateral ratio more freely and hence modify their risk tolerance based on the collateral they deposit. So there's also, in the regard to risk management, some differences between MakerDAO and Abracadabra. And I think there was already some major events where, for example, I think Olympus DAO tokens were dropping quite a lot, I think by 20 or 30%. And the liquidator in Abracadabra has a very funny name, I have to say. It's called El Patron. and El Patron was managing these liquidations fairly good. And it was really like showcasing how Abracadabra works together with the Kashi lending technology. And so far, there has not been like a major event where there would be huge concerns that this concept or this DeFi protocol would be vulnerable to very big black swan events. This is how it looks like in the Abracadabra protocol. We will be also taking a look a little bit later. So you can see here the different vaults where you can deposit your assets, and then you can see how much MIM has been borrowed against these assets already in this vault and how much is left. There's some vaults, I think, for example, also for Spell and S-Spell, which can be also deposited as collateral. But also for, I think, Phantom, some of them, which are very, very often gone within a very short amount of time, because these vaults get replenished on like a weekly or bi-weekly basis. So sometimes a bit tough to get some MIM, but I think this is also due to the fact that at the moment Abracadabra is expanding to all these new chains, and this requires a lot of liquidity for the curve pools. So if we, for example, think about Phantom or Avalanche, there we need enough liquidity on the curve pools for the swapping of MIM, so that the slippage is not too high. And I think this is also a reason why at the moment, at least, we see less replenishments. But I think once Abracadabra has settled on the most prominent DeFi blockchains, we will also see more MIM issuance. And I think MIM has already grown a lot in the past. I think it's now above 2 billion market cap. We will be also taking a look at that later. And I think I've also read yesterday that MIM has, at the moment at least, the highest volume of all stablecoins on Avalanche. So this multi-chain future doesn't seem to be far-fetched, especially with MIM as like the multi-chain stablecoin, because as I already just said, we see already adoption on many different blockchains. Plus, I think it was Bitfinex who just last week started their first trading pair with Bitcoin and MIM. So we also have already the first exchanges who are taking a very close look at the Magic Internet Money stablecoin. And then, unlike traditional DeFi money markets where high-risk assets might jeopardize the entire protocol, each market in Kashi is completely distinct, similar to the sushi swap DEX, which means that the risk of assets in one lending market has no bearing on the risk of assets in other lending markets. And this is, again, as I just explained before, something which is very different to MakerDAO, because MakerDAO has like a multi-collateralist DAI, so all the assets that are deposited basically back the DAI, and this is here again different from Abracadabra, which has like isolated risk markets. The leverage and borrowing against interest-bearing assets. I think this infographic is quite useful to explain the process a little bit, how Abracadabra works. So first, I own Tether. I deposit my Tether in Yearn Finance. My Tether turn into an interest-bearing token, YUSDT. And this interest-bearing token can be now deposited in Abracadabra. I can now borrow MIM against my interest-bearing collateral, and what I can do then is, especially for stablecoins, it's something interesting. I can use this MIM, convert it back into Tether, again into Yearn, and basically repeat this process. And I think there's something like a 10 times loop, and so I can leverage my stablecoin position and therefore increase the overall yield. But it's also fair to say that for stablecoins, I think the collateralization ratio is not that high. So basically, I can borrow a lot of MIM against my Tether. I think for UST, it's roughly, I think, 85 or 90% because USD, Terra USD has been added like last week. And I know that Terra USD once dropped below, I think, 90 cents or below 85 cents. It's some time ago already, I think in March or May. I think it was in May. However, now the UST stablecoin has also improved in regard to price stability, and this collateralization ratio always depends on the volatility and the riskiness of the underlying asset. So, for example, for Shiba or for some other more volatile tokens, you will not be able to borrow that much MIM. And the Abracadabra developer team is always taking a very close look at the different liquidation levels, and I think there's also a dashboard planned for the upcoming weeks, which will always clearly show all the analytics regarding the different lending markets. Okay, if we now go on to DeFi Llama, we will see that Abracadabra had quite a surge in the past weeks. So in August we were here still at 200 million total value locked, and this went then up to above 5 billion. So we see a massive growth also under the narrative of this whole DeFi 2.0 movement, which very much takes into account this multi-chain future. And if you now look here, you will see for now 4 blockchains supported: Ethereum, Avalanche, Arbitrum, and Phantom. As I just explained, Binance Smart Chain and Solana are likely the next 2 to join. And if you also take a look at, for example, let's take a look at Phantom and Avalanche, because I think Abracadabra has already proven to be quite dominant on these blockchains. So, for example, on Avalanche, Abracadabra is ranking on the 10th place with 280 million, with 268 million total value locked, and on Phantom and Arbitrum, let's see. On Arbitrum, it's even ranked 3rd with already 453 million total value locked, just ranked behind SushiSwap and Curve. And on Phantom, we also see Abracadabra in the top 10 with 247 million total value locked. So MakerDAO is only on Ethereum, and this is now something that is obviously like a strategic decision. MakerDAO has not yet proposed any plans to basically go multi-chain, and this is certainly like a gap in like the overall usability of like a stablecoin, because I want it to be available on all the different chains, also for the bridging, so that if I want to move some assets, for example, from Ethereum to Avalanche or to Phantom, I want to have these bridges and also this liquidity on the other chains to make these swaps and to basically transfer my stable coins from one chain to the other. But I could really picture that, especially due to the success of Abracadabra, MakerDAO will have some internal discussions. I mean, they're organized as a DAO, so probably I would expect that there might be a vote on whether MakerDAO should also go multi-chain and support other blockchains, like for example Phantom or Avalanche. But so far there has not been any efforts in that regard. And then what I want to show next, I really like this page, even though it sounds a bit provocative. The DAI stablecoin, as before explained, is a stablecoin of the Maker protocol. MakerDAO still being the biggest lending protocol for over-collateralized loans, and DAI being also one or the biggest decentralized stablecoin at the moment. So this is really the benchmark for Abracadabra. And I think this is also the reason why some developers started this website here, because their goal is to flip MakerDAO and total value locked and some other metrics like market cap or also fees generated. The fees here are right now very low. But I know that first Danielle is like the lead I would say developer, or he's not a developer, but he has a lead over Abracadabra. And I think he posted also yesterday or some days ago that this is currently not showing the exact amount of fees. So 1 or 2 weeks ago, we saw here over 2.5 million fees generated, while basically having just 1/4 of the total value locked of MakerDAO. So the fact that you can use interest-bearing tokens seems to have also a very huge effect on the profitability of the whole protocol. And if we go now a bit more down, we see here the market capitalization of DAI, and then compared to MIM. So we have 30% with DAI compared between MIM and DAI, and then MIM has already 7.34% of the market cap of USDC and 3.4% of USDT. USDC and USDT being the two biggest stablecoins. However, both issued in the form of like a tokenized fund. So here we have Circle as the issuer, and here we have Tether Limited. If you now go a bit further on stats, I also like this page very much, because here you can see the buybacks, because the revenues that are generated by the use and by the borrowing of MIM, these fees are basically redistributed to the SBEL token holders. And for that, one of the developers, his name is Merlin, goes to the open market, and with these fees he basically buys back a SBEL from the open market and then deposits it back to the SBEL token holders. And then you can see basically on a weekly basis how the ratio of SBEL in regard to SBEL is increasing over time. And down here, I think this one is also like an interesting graphic, because here we can see the different type of collateral that are deposited in the Abracadabra protocol. So there's currently a lot of convex pre-crypto 2 in the protocol, probably also because Bitcoin and Ethereum are right now are both quite volatile. We see else staked SBEL, some more convex pools, FTX token. So there's also liquid assets, so not in interest-bearing assets can be also deposited. And I know that Daniele was also talking about that they will support NFTs in the future. So likely we will see not in the near future, but maybe in the upcoming months, that we can also use Abracadabra for more liquid NFTs. Let's say, for example, like CryptoPunks, which have like a liquid market. I could seriously picture that. There's already some protocols who are doing so, but certainly Abracadabra, with its growth and with its size already now, might be one of the top contenders for these NFT lending pools. And finally, I would like to give a little demonstration on how to use Abracadabra. So as you can see here, I'm on Abracadabra, and if you click up here on Phantom, you basically get a selection of all the different blockchains that are supported. I'm right now on Phantom. I want to stay on Phantom, but I just want to show you how easy it is to borrow MIM with your collateral. So here it's wrapped Phantom. I can also use traditional Phantom because I should still have some. Indeed, I have some. 7 Phantom. Let's say I want to deposit 3.5. I want to borrow 50% of my collateral value in MIM. This would be now 4.37 MIM. So I add collateral and click on borrow. I agree. And now I will receive MIM in return for my wrapped Phantom, which I deposited as collateral. And this MIM should be now also showing up in here likely. Yep. So I have now 13.379 MIM, and with these MIM I could do many different things. I could buy me some food. I could buy some more Phantom, for example. I mean, having like a lending market is always very useful. If you don't want to sell your crypto assets, so let's say, for example, you say, hey, I want to long-term hold certain assets like Bitcoin or Ethereum. One possibility that I have seen, for example, in Abracadabra was you can stake your Ethereum for the Ethereum 2.0 beacon chain, and then you can use these staked Ethereum, you deposit them into Yearn. They accrue additional interest than just to the normal staking, and then these Yearn staked Ethereum, for example, can be deposited here in Abracadabra, and then we can borrow some MIM against these assets, and then basically do other trades or invest in some other tokens. Yes, this was it for today. I hoped you liked the demo and also all the news or basically infos regarding Abracadabra. Next week we will be likely taking a look at the Phantom ecosystem. So maybe Tom Finance or also Spirit Swap. There's many interesting projects currently being developed on Phantom, and yeah, I hoped you liked today's session, and then see you next week.